The early church was a special situation. There was music, there was the singing of hymns, psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, as the apostle wrote. In fact, some of the epistles that Paul wrote quoted hymns that were being sung at the time. You could look at Philippians chapter 2, where it speaks about every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. That's part of an ancient hymn. But the early church was persecuted. And I first understood the importance of what this meant in relation to art and music when I visited the catacombs in Rome, and how they had to be so secretive of their worship. So they gathered and they worshiped and they sang, but they didn't sing with the kind of gusto that people sing when they're free. Perhaps they sang in the same way as secret believers did under communism in the Soviet Union or in Red China or in Cuba. But there was art on the walls of the catacombs, but it was very primitive. There is very little direct teaching about art or music in the Scripture. However, there's a great deal of teaching in the New Testament that applies to the early church about spiritual gifts. And there's 4 passages that deal with spiritual gifts. Ephesians 4, 1 Peter 4, Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12. And each of those lists of spiritual gifts are different. Some of them are lists of talents. Some of them seem to be special abilities God has given for supernatural purposes. I conclude, and I really conclude, that the talents that God has given us are to be used for His glory in any setting that we're in, whether or not we're persecuted or as free as we can be. And that has just adjusted over the centuries.